Great. So this period of time now for about 20 or 30 minutes we have for a bit of a closing reflection and some question and answer. So I think we'll start with the Q&A or comments or reflections, anything that you'd like to share. Yes, Charlie.
So I still don't figure out how the mind can just be a sense state, because as soon as a thought comes into my head, I'm off onto like all the emotions connected to it and all the stories about it. Mm-hmm. So I rarely catch it before that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the one way to think about it is when you see an emotion, for example, there is consciousness aware of emotion. That's what's happening there. So that's all that we mean when we say the mind as a sense organ or the mind as a sense field. It means that there is an aspect of mind which is free of thoughts, which is just the knowing part. So another way to think about it, and because I know you have a medical background, so I'll give you another example. One way that we know whether doctors know whether a person is brain dead or not is that they go to the person and they stimulate them in certain ways, right? They shine a little light in your eye, or they poke them with some sharp object, or they, touch them, move them, see if there's any response, any brain response, or any visual response or other response, change in the respiration, right? Different ways that we'd be looking for a response from that person to a stimulus. So what does that mean? It means that just because there is a light and eye that meet, there isn't a moment of eye consciousness unless there is some mind available to attend to that. Right? So there has to be some kind of awareness, some knowing that can receive that and then be impacted, if you will. So then again, going back to that metaphor of the mind as the ocean, right? That's vijnana, that's the consciousness free of thoughts, as if you can imagine an ocean without waves, if there were such a thing, right? And then each time there is somebody a doctor shines a light in that person's eye, if they are not brain dead, right, then there is a little bit of consciousness, a little bit of eye consciousness that's perceivable. Now, there are all sorts of complications to that metaphor, right, because of how much we can or cannot observe of somebody's mental continuum and so on. Right? Science doesn't really understand a mind without thoughts, per se, but in meditative experience, you can experience that in the jhanas. That's what jhana states are. Right? So once you get to somewhere between third and fourth jhana, depending, sometimes those two are hard to see because the sukha is very subtle. But you get definitely by fourth jhana to the point where there isn't an embodied experience anymore. So it can be something like, it can feel something like there's a window that closes and the body was left outside and there's only mind experience. Yeah? Or that it can feel like sometimes the reason Bhante Sujato likes to use this word immersion for the jhana states, because he says, well, it's kind of like if you're in the pool and you have your head above water and then you're hearing all the splashing and you're getting water in your face and then you can go below the water and there's a distinct shift in perception. So jhana can be like that much of a distinct shift in perception because of having left behind various aspects of experience and the knowing, just relating to the knowing at that point. Okay, so something to ponder. And if you see any breaks between the thoughts, that's the time to sort of have a close look. Yeah. If you see any break between the flow of sequence of thoughts, then that's a time to actually pay close attention to what it is that can be observed there. And I will just say one other thing, which is that oftentimes consciousness is the aspect of experience that's easiest to be identified with because it feels continuous to us. But the ultimate understanding of that, or the sort of insight which really truly unlocks the three marks of existence, impermanence, dukkha, and non-self of the thing, is that you can also begin to see that consciousness has its momentariness. It's like those little particles I was talking about. You can start to see the particles independently, so to speak. Yeah. So, but just starting out by, just thinking about that. Mm-hmm. The fact that there is something that can know. In fact, it reminds me of Harada Roshi used to ask people, how do you know you're alive? And they say, oh, I'm breathing, and I have my eyes open, and I can see you, I can hear you, I can feel my body, or whatever. And you would say, no. You know because of the knowing. You know you're alive because of the knowing, the consciousness. So, just something, and maybe that's your koan for today, Charlie.
Pardon?
That's your koan for today, Charlie.
Right.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay. Yes. And then Anand after.
Just a quick comment about experience, practice that today, looking at thoughts and then switching back to there's the mind and then there's the internal, and then there's the external, which is the thoughts, which is kind of different from external sound. It's like you can really feel that that's outside, and then the holding it as being something inside, but you're watching it inside. It's like it sort of like kind of has this feeling of imploding kind of a thing. And that's kind of unstabilizing a little bit because the mind's like, wait, what are we doing here? So there's kind of like just jerkiness with getting used to that's just true.
Well,
maybe.
Right. So the jerkiness is telling you something, and it does sort of subside, and you could say for skillful means reasons, we train, some folks train to leave that jerkiness behind and let it become more comfortable. But the reason that that's there, and maybe what you are alluding to in terms of your experience, is that is a skillful means. One part of the mind looking at the other part of the mind. There is no separation, actually, right? Mind is a phenomena, which is a sequence of mind moments, right? So does one frame in the film relate to a previous frame? Well, yeah, if it's telling some other part of the story, in a sense, but it's not actually looking at that frame. It's just telling that part of that story. So in the same way, when we're looking at the mind, we're making this sense of separation between observer and object, and actually, at some point, it is necessary and mind-blowing when the observer completely drops off, and there is no separation anymore between the object and the thing knowing the object, right? And that's how you know that the mind and the waves that the ocean and the waves are the same thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great. Anand.
Yeah, last night after our session, I was just doing some walking in the home. I noticed like, there are more objects in front of us. It's like it is become harder to see the mind consciousness if you try to catch it. Right? So as I'm seeing, everything you have a story, right? So everything you see within the story just comes up. So just wanted to see if there is the understanding on
Yes.
consciousness.
Yes. No, it's a good it's a clear it sounds to me like a clear observation of the phenomena, right? Which is that when there is the more opportunities for stimulation of the mind, also there's just right that stimulation is spinning off all the other parts of the aggregates at the same time, and so you got a lot more parts to deal with, right? And you also start to perceive, once you are more conscious of the fact that attention can be used, attention can be directed, then you also start to perceive like, oh, right, am I going to make this choice? Am I going to make that choice? Am I hopping all around? You start to also perceive how attention is either being wisely directed or not, much more clearly. Yeah. And that's why we sit down and stay quiet, right? And come and have these supports of seclusion, of silence, of having a seat that's comfortable enough, and so on, right? So that we can just keep we give ourselves the kind of like good playroom for being able to see the mind and work with the mind in a setting where it's calmer. And then when we're off the cushion, then maybe we have more of a chance of seeing what's going on and attending wisely to it.
Just to add to that, so does that mean slower the life, you are more mindful, than faster the life? It's hard. That's what I was getting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, Anand. Practically speaking, any object can be a reasonable object of mindfulness. Right? Even the most unskillful thoughts, even the most agonizing states of body, even horrible things happening in the world can be the objects of skillful mindfulness. That said, whether we have brought enough stability and equanimity and balance to the heart-mind to be able to actually bring that mindfulness in those occasions is another question. Is our practice that steady? Is our equanimity that vast and that balanced that it's not set off by even those very extreme unpleasant or pleasant states? So for that reason, yeah, generally speaking, that's why monastics don't, we set aside a number of different things in life just for simplicity's sake. And I think lots of people take that up optionally. Lots of people take that up as a practice for a whole lot of different reasons, So, but we should be careful to know that as you experienced in the meditation, right, there's always, always, always some stimulation happening, even in the simplest of life.
So what?
Stimulation happening, even in the simplest of life. Yeah? You still have to eat, you still feel some pain in the body, you're walking, you're sitting, you're doing whatever you're doing. And so we can try to dial down the simulation, but ultimately we'll never get to a total non-simulation state. And so that's why we have to learn how to work with the simulation. But definitely make your life simpler. That helps.
Yeah. Maybe the other way, if you develop that state, equanimity, even faster, you can be more skillful.
Yes. Yes. I mean, by definition, a mind that has a lot of equanimity is a mind that can receive all sorts of phenomena and not be set off by it. Thank you. Yes.
Something you said just made me think of something. Before I ever started meditating, I had these experiences a long time ago where it happened once when I was singing. You know, I was singing professionally and I had a great performance. And then it happened when I was in nature. It was the same feeling where everything just came together like, it just felt like perfection and joy, just for a split second. And I, you know, now that I look back on it, I tend to think, is that me just experiencing my true self or my true nature, or just want to be
Well, it's hard to know from just hearing this part of it, but I would say it's possible there's something like a moment of direct experience where or close to direct experience, where the sense of self and the layers of concept are thin enough that, again, a lot of the resistance drops away, that it is sort of not that resistance that is created by us interpolating or understanding something that's not there, or resisting something that is there, so that when those things get thin, then it feels great. That's when that joy comes up, right? It's like, whoa, nice. I can feel that drop off for a second.
a moment of being right in it, and then you go.
Yeah.
Layers, yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to sum up for today, just because we're going to do one more guided meditation and we're going to do a little chanting, dedicate the merit, and maybe also take a group photo if people are up for that. And I hope you will come back tomorrow for the really juicy part about going beyond equanimity and going beyond equanimity. But just to sum up today, this beautiful invitation to the joy of being intimate with the way that your life really works, the truths that are already embedded in your life, and being willing to see them, to experience them, and ultimately to be them. That is a beautiful invitation to joy that we all can pick up to some degree or another. And once that joy begins to be established, then we see that the other qualities that support insight, the other qualities that support a steadying of the mind and a deepening of what can be seen, will also start to develop, because joy is something that the mind wants to do, wants to be with. So we're sort of working with, I think this is one of the subtle sort of teaching styles that we see in the suttas over and over again, that by working with the mind's tendency to be attracted to joy, then we can, as long as it's, again, these wholesome joys of the path, these joys that are coming out of the practice, then we can actually, we're working with that very strong tendency instead of trying to work against it. So there's also just less struggle. The one thing that I find quite interesting is that to allow that to happen means to have a degree of trust that you can, that it's okay to jump in the pool.
Mhm.
That it's okay to see what's really here. And having this kind of a community, having the Dhamma teachings coming into your life, as they clearly have for all of you, having wellness enough in your bodies and minds to be able to come and sit a practice like this, you have what you need to jump in the pool and experience the truths of your lives. Don't doubt that. Don't doubt that. So let's close out with one final sit. So it's very important. Yes.